All right, Floyd Mayweather versus Terence Crawford. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I'm talking about 135, 140, 147. 135, who wins this fight between the two? I'll go Floyd. And the reason why is because at lightweight, I felt like Crawford was a bit too green. He still hadn't really figured out who he was then. He also had a tough fight, Gambo. I think it's his toughest fight in his career, really, where he lost several rounds and even got hurt. Um, in the ninth round before knocking out Gamboa, of course. I just felt like Crawford hadn't really found himself yet, while Floyd was more complete as a fighter at 135. In my opinion, I felt like Floyd hit his prime when he stopped Diego Corrales um, in that fight. That was at 130, but by the time up to 135, I felt like Floyd had gotten to grips with his style and he was started to I felt like he's more complete as a fighter at 135. I think that's when he really hit his prime. Was when he was like 24 when he fought Diego Corrales, and he carried on over to when he beat Ricky Hatton, and then he had his brief retirement. And that's when he came back. That's when I felt like he wasn't the same fighter anymore, because he wasn't unloading combinations on his opponents like he used to when he came back. He was more like pot shotting one shot here and there, while earlier on in his fights he was unloading combinations on fighters. You know, 140. This one's a bit more tough because Mayweather only had like I think 3 fights at 140. Um the most he did at 140 was pick up a belt against Toragay, who's not a strong champion, and then he didn't even defend the title. He just moved up to 147. While Crawford actually became undisputed at 140, but let's be real, he didn't fight against the most strongest opposition either. I mean, he became undisputed against Julius Indongo, one of the weakest unified champions in boxing history. I mean, just go look at his form after Crawford took him out. It's just it's just unbelievable, right? You wouldn't think someone like that was once unified champion. So even though Crawford had more fights here, he did a lot more of the weight, and he was more complete at his weight division. I still would give it to Floyd because again, Floyd still was more complete. Floyd, still he's still the more skillful fighter. Between the two, there's a lot more advantages that Floyd has over Terence Crawford, which we're going to get into later on. Um, but yeah, Crawford had a lot more. He had a lot more experience. He wasn't as green as I think he was at 135. Wasn't as drained as well, because when he fought Gamboa, he came in like 159 on fight night and whatnot. He was a bit drained. Fighting at lightweight, he'd been fighting it for a long time. I think since he turned professional, he didn't win his first championship until like 2014. So 6 years fighting at the same weight class, lightweight, and even fought at lightweights in amateur as well. So he'd been there for a long time. So you can see that he was clearly, draining himself. But at 140, he wasn't draining himself as much. So it didn't have much of an impact on his performance. But I just feel like the division wasn't strong enough. And to be fair, Floyd's competition at 140 wasn't strong enough, either the ones that he fought. But I just felt like because he's a more skillful fighter, I feel like he still takes it. The Crawford fight at 135 and 140 on points. That's what I think we'll go. All right, at 147. Now, this one is a little, I wouldn't say difficult, but this one's a bit odd because, in my personal opinion, Floyd Mayweather's prime ended when he beat Ricky Hatton before he retired. And how many fights did Floyd have at 147 before he retired? I can't exactly remember. But he had a decent amount, I guess. Was the Sean Mitchell fight 147? I believe so. I can't remember. But he fought Zab Judah, and then he fought Baldomir, and then he fought De La Hoya, but that was at 154. And then he went back down and fought Ricky Hatton, and that was it afterwards. And then when he came back and continued fighting at 147, he wasn't the same Floyd Mayweather previous. While Terence Crawford, he was definitely, in my opinion, in his prime by the time he stepped to 147. He's a more of a complete fighter. He was more powerful. He wasn't killing himself as much. He was getting stoppages. He was a better counterpuncher, in my opinion. Like, I think he really hit his stride at 147. Terence Crawford. He's also a lot bigger as well, in terms of mass. Because when he was at 135 or 140, his body was, even though he was killing himself to make the weight, he looked like drawn out. He looked gaunt a little bit. He looked like someone that clearly was struggling to make weight. While here at 147, he looks stronger. He looks bigger. You know, he just was more complete as a fighter. So before I said Floyd is more skilled than Terence Crawford, why do I think this? I think, well, not just more skilled, but I think he just has better attributes for starters. Floyd, in my opinion, prime for prime, quicker foot than Terence Crawford. He has quicker hands than Terence Crawford. Better defense than Terence Crawford, definitely. Crawford, I'm not gonna say is the easiest guy to hit. Was also not the hardest guy to either. Like he can be caught sometimes with silly shots, and not always by the greatest opposition as well. Um, you know, but then you also look at fights like Canelo and Errol Spence, and his defense just looks, you know, pretty good at times. But there's times where Crawford can be hit, but there's other times in other fights where yeah, his defense is actually more responsible than it is in other fights. But yeah, Mayweather has a better defense. He has better head movement. You utilize his head movement more. Crawford does not really move his head. He doesn't really move his head. Even when in terms of defense, Crawford mainly relies on his legs and blocking. While Floyd Mayweather, he has his legs, he moves his head, he blocks, he blocks punches, he deflects punches with his shoulders. There's just a lot more variety with his defense. Is Floyd a better counter puncher than Terence Crawford? Yeah, I would say so too. He was a quicker hands if I didn't say that before. Um, can Floyd control distance better than Terence Crawford? They do both do a good job, but I'll give it to Floyd because Floyd doesn't get hit with some of the shots that Terence Crawford has gotten hit with as well. And I think Floyd's footwork, defensive footwork, is far more effective as well. And Floyd has a good enough offense. But there's also, even though I think Floyd does better than Crawford in a lot of things, I will actually give this one to Crawford, and here's why. The reason why is this. Crawford, I believe, will be the biggest opponent that Floyd Mayweather has ever fought in his career. I mentioned earlier that he rehydrated to, like, I think 159, pretty much 160, when he fought Yuriorkis Gamboa. And now he's at 147. And I do remember, I'm pretty sure I remember a video like from years back where Crawford stepped on the scale and he actually showed like 177 or something like that. And when he fought Canelo recently, actually Crawford said he weighed 175, but I don't know for a fact how much he weighed because it never came out. But when he fought Madrimov, he wasn't really that far off that either. I think it was like 170 or something when he fought Madrimov, on fight night. But yeah, that would be the biggest opponent that Floyd Mayweather's ever fought will be Terence Crawford. Even bigger than what Canelo weighed on their fight when they fought, because I think Canelo weighed like 165, 166, something along the lines of that. Maidana, I think he weighed around 165 as well, around that as such. I don't remember. I remember when he fought Diego Corrales, he was like Diego Corrales is taller than Terence Crawford, but he weighed like 139. No, he didn't. He weighed 146 when he fought on fight night. Maybe was the one that weighed 139. But those are the ones I can remember in terms of the fight night weights. But yeah, Terence Crawford would be the biggest opponent that Floyd Mayweather has ever fought. Terence Crawford also has enough power to keep Floyd honest. He also, his counter punching is very good. He has very good timing. Crawford's got quick hands, but his hand speed is not quicker than Mayweather's. But his hand speed is good enough, and his time is good enough for it to cause Mayweather problems. I see some people saying that there's no way Terence Crawford can land on Mayweather, that he wouldn't land on him, and Mayweather was scoring. And I'm sitting there thinking, how is it that Terence Crawford cannot land on Mayweather, but Chop Chop Corley can? Zab Judah can. A 38-year-old Shane Mosley can. Manny Pacquiao can. Maidana can. Like all these fighters, I probably missed out maybe Miguel Cotto at times, I name as well, Buster Floyd and those up. Like, how is it these guys can land the Floyd Mayweather, but Terence Crawford cannot when he's, oh God, ice cream van. Hopefully you guys cannot hear that. I can. But yeah, how is it that 38-year-old Shane Mosley can land on Floyd Mayweather with big right hands and hurt Floyd Mayweather badly, almost put him down, but Terence Crawford cannot when he's more accurate than someone like Shane Mosley, a better counter puncher than someone like Shane Mosley? I'm struggling to understand that. Zab Judah gave Floyd problems earlier in that fight. He landed that right hook on Floyd, which put him down, or made his glove touch the canvas. The referee never counted it. And I think in the fourth round, Zab Judah also clipped Floyd Mayweather. What was it? A big left hand, which rocked Floyd Mayweather. But Terence Crawford cannot land that punch. Why can he not? Terence Crawford, in my opinion, in fact, let me not even say my opinion. It's just apparent that he's better than Zab Judah, more skilled. Like he's just a better fighter than Zab Judah. I think Terence Crawford is also a better fighter than Manny Pacquiao, in terms of skill. And a lot of other guys that have caught Floyd, so I don't see why he won't be able to touch Floyd. He definitely has the power to hurt Floyd badly as well. I believe that too. If he catches him. So yeah, he doesn't. He's not as skilled, or doesn't have some of the attributes that Mayweather has. He may not be as quick, or may not be, whatever. But his attributes are still good enough for him to pose a problem for Floyd. He also has a longer reach than Floyd. It's not often that Floyd fought opponents that had a longer reach than him, and if he did fight them, they usually either didn't use it or they did use it and went away from it, like Oscar De La Hoya, or in the case of not using it, Diego Corrales, who just basically just gave up his higher reach and just moved in range without throwing a punch, and maybe was able to pick him off that way. Terence Crawford knows how to use his range. He knows how to control distance. I ain't saying he's the greatest at doing it because I mentioned earlier on he can get caught, but it's good enough for him to keep Floyd at bay. Now, Crawford, since he's a switch hitter, I find what I know about his fights is that when he turns orthodox, he can have a tendency to lose some rounds. He lost rounds to Gamboa while he was orthodox. I mean, eventually knocked him out, I believe, in orthodox stance, I believe, if memory serves me correct. And then against Delorme, where he was orthodox the entire fight, and even against Kell Brook, when he was orthodox, he was losing rounds. But the moment he turned southpaw, that's when he actually has a lot more success. I think he's way better as a southpaw than he is as an orthodox. And in his two biggest fights against Errol Spence and Canelo Alvarez, he was southpaw the entire fight. He was not orthodox once. And those are his two best performances, were the fights where he stayed southpaw the entire time. And I don't believe that against someone like Floyd Mayweather, who's a better skill fighter than both of those guys, he's just going to go orthodox. I think he's going to be southpaw the entire fight. Now, why is the southpaw thing important in this? The reason why it's important is because Mayweather utilizes the Philly shell. The Philly shell isn't as effective when you're fighting against southpaws. That's why when you see him fight the likes of Zab Judah, the likes of Manny Pacquiao, I'm trying to think of other southpaws as well. Robert Guerrero, Victor Ortiz, and Chop Chop Corley, if memory serves me correct, you don't see him use that Philly shell stance. And the reason why is because when you're in the Philly shell and you're going against the southpaw, the left hand often gets through. Because when you're fighting against the orthodox fight and using a Philly shell, you can use your right hand to block the left hook coming from the orthodox stance. Their left hook is closer to your right hand. You can predict that. You can block and deflect. But the southpaw left, it doesn't hook around. It just goes straight. How are you really gonna block it? With your right hand. How are you gonna really block it? I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's harder to do so. Which is why when Mayweather fights against southpaws, he doesn't really use it. He tends to utilize a higher guard, like he did against Zab Judah. He didn't. When he was using the Philly show, he was getting clips. That's when he switched to high guard. But yeah, use the higher guard. Now, why is this important? Because Mayweather isn't used to he isn't used to going up against someone with a high guard who has a longer reach than he does. That's why it's a bit more important. He's not used to doing that, so it'll be a little different. And not only is he going against someone with a longer reach than him, but it's also going against someone that is very accurate with their punches, who hits really hard, is the biggest opponent he's ever fought. Probably, I know Canelo's bigger than Crawford, but I'm just saying that in terms of like when they're on fight night, because on fight night Crawford weighs higher than Canelo did when he fought Floyd Mayweather. Who's the biggest opponent you fought? He hits hard enough. He's very good at picking their punches and can counter you when you throw something, and definitely has the power to hurt you. Like it's gonna be a tough fight. It's gonna be very tough for Floyd. And another thing as well I'd like to mention is that actually, let me go back to the southpaw part. I don't think I explained it properly. When using the Philly shell as well, when they throw the backhand, the left hand, it goes right through the middle. While when the orthodox fight, when they throw the hook, it goes around. So you block it. If your hands are like already up, you're blocking it. But when you're in a Philly shell stance, your left hand, your lead hand's in front, Philly shell, your shoulders in front, and then you got the right hand, which is there to block. The southpaw throws the left hand. It usually goes through the middle. Boom. And you also have to try and establish lead foot position at the same time to make sure you don't get the left hand. So that's why he doesn't really use it as much against southpaws. Although a lot of Philly shell fighters in general don't use it against southpaws. It's because the left hand often goes through the middle. But yeah, what was I saying before? Because I just fucking derailed my other point. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, I didn't exactly derail my home point because I was done with it. But anyways, as far as what Floyd can do, Floyd would still attack Crawford. He has quick enough hands. He's accurate enough to hit Crawford. I think it'll be a very tough fight because, again, Floyd is still more skilled than Terence Crawford, but that's why I think he'd still be able to land on Crawford because other opponents were able to land on him. And you talk about Floyd Mayweather, one of the most accurate guys in the sport of boxing. A very, very good counter puncher. Quick feet. He still will be able to land on Crawford. But this is the point I was trying to make. Another point is in the clinches. Floyd Mayweather, as I mentioned in my video against Paul Williams, he's very savvy in the clinches, very savvy. And he's a lot stronger than he appears, or at least knows how to manipulate the clinches, even against opponents way bigger than him. But against Terence Crawford, he's not going to be able to do that, because Terence Crawford not only is bigger than him, but he also knows how to wrestle. Errol Spence couldn't do anything against him in the clinch. Canelo Alvarez couldn't really do much against Terence Crawford in the clinch. Sean Porter, who's very physically strong, was getting thrown around the ring by Terence Crawford. And Errol Spence, who's a very big welterweight, and is strong, he was going back and forth with Sean Porter in terms of, whose back is touching the ropes and such. It's going back and forth, but Terence Crawford, when he was going against Sean Porter, he was throwing him around the ring. Sean Porter can do anything against him when it came to the battle of physicality or the clinch. And Floyd Mayweather, he usually is very good at that, but he's going against someone that knows how to, grapple way better than he can. So Floyd Mayweather wouldn't have that same advantage in that fight. So that's another thing to take into account. So I think that might be it. It'll be a very good fight. It'll be a tough fight between two skilled guys, never lost, both undefeated, very, very skilled fighters. But I think Terence Crawford has the edge. If Terence Crawford lands on Floyd Mayweather and hurts him, could he knock him out? I mean, I wouldn't fully rule it out, but Floyd Mayweather is so... I remember when he got caught by that big right hand from Shane Mosley, well, there's two big right hands, he was able to hold on tight. He was holding on tight for dear life against Shane Mosley. For dear life, he was holding. But when he's holding tight against Shane Mosley, will he be able to do the exact same thing against Terence Crawford? I don't think so. Because Terence Crawford is a better grappler than Shane Mosley. And Terence Crawford is one of the best finishers in this generation of boxing. One of the best, when he has you hurt, it won't take him that long to finish you off. Look at where there's Kell Brook. Look how he finished Mean Machine. People may say, well, it took him long to finish Errol Spence. Errol Spence wasn't really hurt in the fight until later on, if you really look at the knockdowns. The first knockdown was, it was a balanced shot, really. Errol Spence was off balance. He overreached. Terence Crawford caught him with the 2-1, the left hand, and then the right, the jab. And he put Errol Spence down. He wasn't seriously hurt. Even the second knockdown, when he caught him with an uppercut, Errol Spence wasn't really hurt. Errol Spence wasn't really hurt. But it wasn't until maybe the 9th round. That's when Errol Spence was really hurt, and that's when the fight was finished. But yeah, Terence Crawford is a very, very good finisher. So if he has Floyd as hurt as Floyd was against Shane Mosley, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of a knockout. I'm not saying that would happen, but I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule it out. And so yeah, that's another thing I thought about, is because that's the worst you see in Floyd in terms of being hurt in a fight. Some may say though he was hurt worse against Maidana, because when he got hurt by Maidana and when he came back for the next round, he was still on wobbly legs, which is true. While against Shane Mosley, he recovered. Later on in the round. But Against Shea Mosley, he came close to going down. And he was hurt twice in a round, which is something you don't see in the Floyd Mayweather fight. So, yeah. I just think Crawford's too big. I mean, it's not just the fight his size, because Floyd's fought big people for, but I think Crawford will be the biggest he's fought. He'd be too big, powerful, very accurate, quick hands. Crawford's very athletic as well, knows how to control distance well. Floyd will still land on him. It'll still be a tough fight. He will be able to win some rounds, but I think Crawford will just be able to get the better of him and, get a points, win the fight on points. So, I think I've said everything I needed to say here. I'm out.